Hi, my name is Ashley and I'm a mom of 2 little girls. I have a 3.5-year-old named Kylie and I also have an 18-month-old named Mia. So as many of you guys already know, I recently started Montessori homeschooling my daughter Kylie, and I am really trying to give her as authentic of an experience as possible here at home without going too overboard, because I'm not exactly sure when she will actually be attending the brick and mortar Montessori preschool that she was supposed to have attended this year. There is one classic Montessori material that I have been very excited about introducing to Kylie. I've actually had it in my supply closet for quite a few weeks now, and I've just been holding off until the perfect time when I felt like she was truly ready for it. And this week we finally hit that point, so I'm really excited to share what I know about it with you guys, because I did have to do a little bit of research up front to really figure out how this material is supposed to be introduced to the child and what its intended uses are once it has been introduced. Not that a child can't use it in any other way. Of course, they can always have license to be creative, but I wanted to make sure that I was giving her an authentic experience with it. So I did that research, and I'm hopefully going to save you guys a little bit of time and effort in that department, because I would really like to share what I know with you today. So from one busy parent to another, today we're going to talk a little bit about the Montessori Movable Alphabet. Now, really quickly, before we jump into talking about the movable alphabet, I did want to take care of 2 little housekeeping tasks, which I don't normally do in these videos, but they're both really exciting things that I wanted to share with you guys. So really quickly, the first one is that I have been taking part in a really exciting collaboration this week over on Instagram. If you're not following me yet, my handle is @HappyFamilyVlog. Go follow me. And what you're gonna be looking for is this collaboration called the Montessori Toddler Series. So I teamed up with a whole bunch, I think like 10 other really awesome Montessori mamas on Instagram, and we have spent this whole week sharing all kinds of advice and tips and activity ideas that are all perfect for Montessori toddlers. So if you are interested in getting in on that, then head over to Instagram and check out that series. We've been posting on our actual Instagram feeds as well as in our stories every single day, and it does last all the way through today, Thursday, and then again tomorrow on Friday. So you can also go back and look at some of our earlier posts from this week as well and get some really great ideas for your toddlers at home. And the other housekeeping task that I was really excited to share with you today is perfect if you are a Montessori homeschooling parent like myself. It is something called the Montessori Homeschool Summit 2020. It is a brand new 100% online virtual Montessori conference that you can attend from the comfort of your own home. You can literally sit in your pajamas with a cup of coffee on your couch and have your computer at hand and participate in this conference over the course of a couple of days later on in October. And I'm really excited about it because it is being presented by over 20 incredible experts in the Montessori community, some of whom are trained Montessori teachers, some of whom are parents like you and I, some of whom are consultants, but they all have a massive amount of experience with Montessori homeschooling, and they are going to be sharing all that they know with us. In addition to the fact that it's online, the other thing that I'm really excited about is that the whole thing is video based and you can watch the videos at your own pace. So you don't actually have to be present during the live summit days if your schedule doesn't permit. You will actually have access to the videos for 3 whole months after the summit is over, so you can go back and watch them at any point that you want. So this is really exciting. I know that I'm going to be attending, and I cannot wait to learn everything that there is possible to know about Montessori homeschooling from these incredible people. So if you're interested in learning more about the summit or signing up, I will leave a link in the description box down below that you can check out. All right, so let's jump into talking about the movable alphabet. Now, first things first, if you don't already know this, in a Montessori environment, children do not learn the names of the letters of the alphabet until much later. The first thing that they're introduced to are the sounds that each of the letters of the alphabet makes, and this is called phonics. So what that means is that your child is learning a, b, k, d, e, f, and so on, instead of A, B, C, D, E, F, like you would normally hear. And when a child is first introduced to these letter sounds, it's done using something called the sandpaper letters. If you have never seen the sandpaper letters before either, then I would suggest you watch an earlier video that I made about what they are and how to use them. So I will leave a link in the description box down below, and I would highly suggest checking that out first, because that is where children should technically start in their language learning journey in a Montessori environment. So they're using these sandpaper letters to have a multisensory experience with learning the sounds of the letters. So not only are they able to see what the actual letter looks like on this little wooden board, but it's a cutout in sandpaper. So they're seeing it, they're having an opportunity to actually trace the shape of the letter with their fingers so that they're feeling it, and they're also hearing it as well, because as they're tracing the letter and they're looking at it, they're repeating the sound that the letter makes. So they're tracing and saying ah, all at the same time. So it's a much better approach to learning the sounds of the letters because they're getting it from so many different perspectives, and it really helps to cement it in their memory versus just rote memorization. So a child is typically using these sandpaper letters from about the age of 2 on up, and that's their first introduction to the alphabet. By the time your child is about 3.5 to 4 years old, they are most likely going to be very familiar with all of the different sounds that the letters of the alphabet make. And if they are not, then you want to make sure you start there first and reinforce all of those different letter sounds until they feel comfortable with all of them. And it's only at that point, really, that your child is likely going to be ready for the movable alphabet. So a traditional Montessori movable alphabet is a wooden box that has 26 different compartments, one for each of the letters of the alphabet. And in each compartment, you'll find several little wooden letter cutouts for each of the different letters. You will notice right away that the vowels are all in blue and all of the consonants are in red. Traditionally, the movable alphabet is offered in cursive letters. However, times have changed since its original introduction, and so now you will also find versions that contain manuscript letters and those that contain print letters. The movable alphabet that is introduced first typically includes only lowercase letters, although there are versions that include capital letters as well that can be introduced at a later time. And the reason for this is that a large majority, I forget the exact statistic, but I want to say it's something like 80 to 90% of all of the letters that a child will encounter while reading are all lowercase. Because if you think about it, usually we only use capitals for the names of people, places, and things, or at the beginning of a sentence. So to have familiarity with the lowercase letters first before they worry about the capitals is much more important for them in learning to decode words that they're trying to read later on. And I don't think there are any hard and fast rules as to exactly when to introduce the capital letters to the child later, because from what I've heard and from my own personal experience thus far, it's a very intuitive process that the child just eventually picks up on by themselves. It is important when you're introducing the movable alphabet to your child that if they have already had some experience with sandpaper letters, that you stay consistent with whatever type of letter you've already introduced to them. So if you started out with print sandpaper letters, then you should use a print movable alphabet. Or if you started out with cursive sandpaper letters, then you should certainly use a cursive movable alphabet. This just eliminates any potential confusion for your child. So why do we use a movable alphabet in the Montessori environment for teaching language? The reason is because we actually approach teaching writing before reading, not the other way around, which is a little bit more of a traditional approach. And the reason for that is because the child already has the ability to use expressive written language. Once they know all of those letter sounds, they're perfectly capable of doing this, but typically their actual handwriting skills, the ability to hold a pencil and maneuver it just the right way to create letters on paper, is a lot more difficult for them. So they're essentially being held back from expressing themselves in the written form simply because their hand is not quite developed enough yet. So the idea is that we eliminate that problem by providing them with pre-formed letters, and then they can work off of their understanding of phonics to actually write out different words that they already know. And the process of using a movable alphabet really helps that connection between written and spoken words become a lot more clearer to the child. So it's almost viewed as this bridge between reading and writing. It's also very important to understand that the child is not using the movable alphabet to write out words with perfect spelling. They're using the phonetic sounds of each of the letters to sound out the words, and they're spelling them according to those sounds. So because they are using phonics to write words, there are necessarily going to be a lot of spelling mistakes in the beginning. That is perfectly normal and acceptable, and it's not something that requires correction on your part at all. You have complete permission to sit back and just allow your child to experiment with the way that they're hearing the letters and spelling them out on their own. Spelling is something that comes at a much later time when they have more experience with writing. All right, so as for the very first time that you introduce the movable alphabet to your child, you really want to go into it with this mindset that you're sharing this really exciting secret with them. There's something really cool inside this box, and you're gonna let them in on the secret. You're gonna show them what it is and how to do it. And you really want to get them amped up about it. And a child who is ready for this task will likely be very interested and want to learn how to do it. If they're showing disinterest, then they're likely not ready, and you might consider trying it again in the future at a later time. But hopefully they are really excited, and you can open up the box and kind of show them what's inside and point out the different letters. They're likely going to be very intrigued by the fact that there are different colors of letters available. You can allow them to take some of the letters out of the box and manipulate them and look at them and just kind of explore in that way. And once you're ready, it is then time to actually show them how the movable alphabet is used. So there's a couple of different activities that you could introduce to your child, which I'll talk about in just a second. But just for sake of example, if you are going to be using a set of objects with your child and the letters and spelling something out, then this is kind of how you would introduce it. You would pick up one of the objects or cards if you decided to use cards, and you're gonna show them what it is. You'd say, this is a cat. And then you'd put that down on your mat, and then you'd say, I'm gonna write the word cat. Are you ready? And then you're gonna kind of use your finger and visually scan the box and look for the letter C. And then you're gonna find it and stop and say, K. And you're gonna take it out of the box and you're gonna lay it down next to the picture. And then you're going to repeat. You're gonna look for the letter A, and then the letter T, one by one, and then you're gonna lay them down on the mat. And then you'll point to the picture and you'll say, this is a cat. And then you'll sound it out. K, at, k, at, cat. This says cat. And have your child repeat you. And then it's likely at that point that they're going to be really intrigued and potentially want to have their own turn. So you can give them the set of objects or cards, whatever you're using, and let them have a chance to try it out for themselves. Again, if they spell it wrong, it's important not to correct, just let them go with it. Over time, as they become more accustomed to how to use the letters and all the different sounds and comfortable with exactly where the letter is that they're looking for in the box, they will get better at it. So just sit on your hands, close your mouth, try not to say anything, and just let them explore and have fun with it. Beyond that initial demonstration, you just want to leave the material out for your child to experiment with on their own terms. And you do not want to ever test them or quiz them in the early stages before they're ready for reading. So you don't want to demonstrate for them and then not tell them what the word is and then say, what does this say? Expecting that they're going to be able to read it. Because believe it or not, they might not actually be able to read the words that you have written just yet. They're very good at expressing themselves and writing out their own words, like what's floating around inside their own minds. But reading the words of others is a next step that they may not quite be ready for yet. So don't go there quite yet. But on the flip side of things, it is perfectly acceptable for you as the observer, while your child is working with the movable alphabet in the future and they've had some more experience, perfectly fine for you to go up behind them and just maybe casually over their shoulder read one of the words that they've written on their mat. And I have not had this experience yet myself, but I'm very excited for this to happen in the future since we only just started working with it. But I've heard that for most children, when they hear you reading the word that they've written, they're almost surprised by it. Like they're like, oh, like what? How did you know that that's what I wrote? It almost to them feels like you got inside their head magically somehow, and it's surprising to them. And that's really the key here, is that this whole experience can be very magical for children, and that's exactly what you want. You want them to have that sense of like, oh, wait, what? And then later on, when they are ready for reading, they will spontaneously discover that they can read the words of others. And then you will be able to go further down that path with them at that time. And of course, there are some games and things that you can do to help your child get to that point, which is a topic for another video. But for now, we're just focusing on helping our child express the sounds that they know and turning them into words. So there are a couple of different ways that you can use your movable alphabet. One of the earliest ways that you could actually experiment with it, even before you have your child spelling anything out, is to have them become familiar with the fact that the little letters in the box are the same thing as the sandpaper letters. So you can lay out some of the sandpaper letters and actually ask them to match the letters that are in the movable alphabet box to their sandpaper letters, and that will help them become more familiar. But if you think your child is ready for more, there's no reason that you can't dive right into helping them learn how to use the movable alphabet in the way that it's intended to be used. So you can start by helping them isolate the different sounds that they're hearing at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of very short 3-letter phonetic words, which are often called CVC words, which stands for consonant, vowel, consonant. So think words like cat or dog or pot or pan. And the way that you would do this is to provide your child with a set of objects and have them look for that matching initial sound, the first sound that they're hearing at the beginning of the word, and just isolating that one letter. You can then move on to having them isolate that middle sound that they're hearing in the middle of the word, and then finally you would have them isolate the ending sound. If your child is doing really well with this task and you feel like they need just a little bit more challenge, then you can offer them a set of picture cards instead of actual objects. Having pictures instead of something to hold is another level of abstraction for them. It's a little bit more difficult. So you can offer them pictures and then have them repeat the task looking for that beginning, middle, or end sound. So once your child has become very proficient with isolating those beginning, middle, and end sounds, you might then consider asking your child to actually write out the whole word using the movable alphabet. So again, you would want to start with objects and have them look for the and the ah and then the p for mop, and having them lay it out all by themselves. And once they're comfortable with the objects, then you can swap those out for a set of picture cards again and have them repeat the task at another level of challenge. And it is very important, again, to start with those phonetic CVC words first, because you don't want to overwhelm your child with a very big, long word that they are going to have trouble spelling right off the bat, or a word that has lots of different little blends and other sounds that they're not familiar with and that they're not going to know what to do with it when they hear it. So start with the phonetic CVC words. They're going to have a lot more success. They may also be able to put together in their mind their understanding of all of these different little word families. I'm not an expert in this topic by any means, but I do know that, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with as well, there are word families like mat and sat and bat and cat, and that it's a lot easier for a kid to pick up all of those different things once they've understood the pattern. And then the next step would be to introduce your child to some of those blended sounds and those just weird sounds in our language that don't necessarily have any rhyme or reason. It's just a special rule that you have to learn. For example, the sh sound in sheep, or the ch sound in cheese, or the fl sound in flag, or even the th sound in the. And finally, once your child is very comfortable with identifying all of these normal phonetic sounds and some of the oddball ones that they just have to learn, and they're feeling very comfortable with all of that, then they should be ready to go to start constructing some of their own simple sentences. And there are more than enough letters in the box to do that. Now, when it comes to your child's actual workspace, when they're working with the movable alphabet, if they want to do it on the kitchen table because that is where they're accustomed to doing it, then by all means go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. Or if they like to work on the floor and kind of lay down on their bellies while they're working, that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with it. If you want your child to become accustomed to using a more traditional Montessori work mat to help define their space that they're working in, especially if you have other children, this can be really helpful because you can teach them to walk around what your child is doing instead of walking over what they're doing and potentially ruining it while they're in the middle of it. There are no special rugs that you have to use with the movable alphabet, but there are some rugs that are available that might be helpful to your child as they become a little bit more experienced with using it. And these are some work rugs that actually have the handwriting lines on them, like already pre-threaded into the work rug, just to help them learn to line up the letters properly and keep them straight while they're working. And at this point, if you are planning to use a movable alphabet, then you're probably wondering, where do I buy one? Well, there are a couple available online that I've seen at pretty affordable prices on Amazon, as well as a couple of different independent Montessori suppliers. So I will leave links to all of those down below if you're interested in checking them out. And then you can also DIY movable alphabets. I have seen all different ways to do this with all different types of materials. It does not have to be made of wood as it is in the traditional way. They can also be made of little laminated cards that you've just printed out yourself. They can be made of felt. They can be made of, I don't even know what. There are so many of them. I'm actually gonna leave a couple of links down below to some of the DIYs that I've seen for you guys, just in case you're interested in going the DIY route. So that is what I have for you today about the Montessori movable alphabet. If you are interested in learning more about just doing Montessori at home in general with your children, then I also offer an e-course that you might want to check out that walks you through it step by step. So I will leave a link in the description box down below to that in case you're interested. And just in case you are new to my channel, I also wanted to let you know that this video is part of a much larger series called Montessori at Home here on this YouTube channel. And its aim is to provide practical tips and advice for busy parents like you and I for implementing Montessori at home with children. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in watching more of, then you might consider subscribing to my channel. This way you don't miss a new video, because I do upload a new one just like this one every single week. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.